Hi, everybody. Welcome back to our Phil Lately podcast with Brian Quick and Raymond St. Martin, coming
And
to you
whoever that
from,
is.
and
Your dog.
Jasper, my dog. Yeah, as
His
we
head
are
just took the whole screen for a second.
coming to you today to talk to you about and to talk to each other about identity verification, how NFTs can be used to represent unique identity verification, specifically how SIOs, which is our own version of a non-fungible token, can be used in the identity verification world. Very important to think about this as identity verification, not identity itself. This is more a process. This is one out of the 65 that we dove into that Ryan was particularly keen on. So we're going to let Ryan dive in, kind of set the groundwork here around defining identity verification and also why it's so important to use things like blockchain and like a connected network to do so. So Ryan, brother, why did you pick identity verification?
One, it's already a standard, and it's a very similar standard to what NFTs do already. So if you're using OAuth or Identity One or a gazillion of identity platforms out there, like Okta or any of those, right? The mechanisms that they use are already essentially they're not on chain, but the verification linked means that you go back to and look at their verification chains, not blockchain, and the providers that put them out there are already very similar. And so it wouldn't be a very big stretch to provide provenance for that kind of mechanism. Hard to trying to avoid the ring to rule them all concept, but I mean to come up with something similar like that, where you could have a point of reference proof for all different types of places that your identity is being actively used. I don't think a lot of people realize that regardless of how you happen to be online, your identity is preceding you and constantly being checked and verified all the time. Like we're right here recording this on Zoom. Zoom is confirming that we are who we say we are every so often during the call. You hit websites, it's doing the same thing. You pull up your email when you get notifications on your phone. Gets attached to my arm, and that generates a token that gets verified. I go and paste stuff with the phone, or even with the chips on cards. All of these things are tokens already. So extending that concept into the NFT world, and then being able to make use of some of the unique aspects that NFTs provide that aren't always there for JWT or off token strategies, would be an easy win, so to speak. To me, that's very low hanging fruit. Everybody's already used to it. Nobody questions it. The technology management out there knows it exists and understand it, but because of that, it's low barrier to entry. And this is one place that, for whatever reason, nobody's really walked very much. I think there's people that have tried to have your life on chain that's not what we're talking about here. I'm talking about the process by which your identity precedes you and unlocks doors as you're moving around. And I think that's pretty low hanging fruit for the Web3 world.
It's awesome. I mean, that's one of the key pieces here in having the social identity of objects work in any system is having provable identity. I mean, without it, the system breaks. Without it, we have Web2. Without provable, identity across a network of things that are all have their identities also proven, you don't have the level of trust that we're going to need as we move into a creator economy and we move into things like licensing your own ideas and being able to tell stories that are immutable and that are not ephemeral out there in the world. You must be able to trust where it comes from. So being able to me, like, it's extremely important. And as you've said, it's not groundbreaking, like, oh my God, no one's ever like done this. But when you're talking about a system of identity verification across a network of everything in the known universe, unless you can prove that this person is this person, and that this object is this object. Because now think about, okay, so you do the work to figure it out for humans. One of the main concepts of the social identity of objects is the humanization of objects, bringing these objects to life. If this object is proven to be the object, and we're really, really amazing at proving that these humans are humans, and we apply that same technology, that same methodology to objects, now you have more trust in the object itself as well, that this is the thing, right? Because it's super hard. We still get the, I hate this word, phygital, but you look at the word of like these phygital, assets being, physical items in the real world. And you look at them now having these digital twins, some people call them. You have the digital representation, or you have what we call the SIO of that physical object alive in the world. How do you prove it? How do you prove the identity of that physical object? There is no social security number. There's no driver's license. There's no, in some cases, there are VIN numbers, right? Like if you look at the original SIO patent, things like VIN numbers, whole numbers, things that are numbers already, unique identifiers that exist with a physical object being used to associate to the digital object is the closest, or to the SIO, is the closest we have in the physical world. The thing about humans is, and I think we do an okay job of it globally, is that every human does have a legal identity. Now they can change it and they can fake it. I mean, there are probably millions of people like right now in our country that have fake social security numbers, right? But at least there is some level of tracking and tracing that is already associated with humans. So to me, it's really interesting to think about how the human solution, number one, well, it's not interesting to think about. I think it's really important to think about, number one, that every human in a social identity of objects network is provenly the human that they say they are. Extremely important. Number two, how the key learnings from doing that for humans applies to objects, and how a trusted social identity of object system has a similar, but very different set of inputs for these digital objects and assets. So that to me makes it super interesting, because just like the trace product that's in the Esaiyo engine that tracks and traces, objects across multiple chains, on chain, off chain, you can't have a social identity of objects system that works properly or is trusted unless you can prove that this human is the human they say they are. Very important.
Where are you thinking that you're going to tie the test of the proof? So like, Web3 can give you the provable object, but the actual trust of the proof has to come from somewhere else. Is that part of what you're thinking here too, or is that left for an exercise for the reader or next week?
It's interesting, right? Because this is where it's everything that is in the digital world, as long as you have a living system, a growing system, is continually changing, and things that we think are true today could be different in 5 seconds. It could be untrue in 5 minutes. It could be untrue in 5 years. So it's all we can do is do our best to take a snapshot and say this is what it is today according to these data and attributes, and doing a really good job of doing that and locking that in on chain and making it immutable and creating some record and being a verify or a trusted source for that verification is the best anybody can do. Because we live in an expanding universe that is constantly changing and continually in motion. So we've had this conversation before. What is truth, right? Who are you, right? Let's get really like, who are you? There are multiple data points that point to this being true, the probability of this being true. Are we living in a simulation? Are we living in, a theistic, monotheistic, polytheistic world? What exists, what is true, is yet to be defined and ultimately discovered in a world that has zero objective truth. But I think we're moving toward it. And I think that movement toward objective truth, getting closer to it, Web3 and NFTs, and particularly SIOs, get us closer to the truth of a human and who this person is. Not just my social security number, but who I am. Like, who are you, Brian? Who am I? How we interact with the system, how the system then interacts with us, and how other humans interact with us through the system will get us closer, I believe, to seeing who we truly are. And that's a different ID, right? Now, this is not just my stamp, my hash. These are all the attributes that compose me.
You sound like the caterpillar on Alice in Wonderland. Who are you? Call that the caterpillar moment.
It is a caterpillar moment. It is. I mean, that's one of the things, the existential questions that we're on Earth and have this life to, I think, one of the beautiful things we talked about earlier before this moment is, at 50 years old, figuring out who I am, more and more each day. That's one of the beauties of life. And I think it's one of the beauties of an SIO system. One of the main components when I first envisioned this back in 2015 was the quote that came from Hamlet, hold as twere a mirror up to nature. The idea that this data, this metadata, this human interaction, this human computer interaction could bring us closer to seeing nature, bring us closer to seeing truth. We're holding a mirror up to it. We're not nature itself, but this technology could be a mirror to see into it and a mirror to reflect it. And that's as close as we can get. There will never be perfection. But that's why we're human. And that's why we're in a never expanding universe, right?
Yeah, I think that's fine. Well, I mean, you're always working towards it, but it's not, you're never actually going to get there. Plus, the goalposts move as new technology emerges, forms come out and stuff. So it's not bad.
So I think that wraps this piece up. I mean, I think that's a good take on this. Do you have any last words on this concept here, Ryan?
No, I mean, I think it's table stakes to get into the game for anything that's going to take identity to another, merge identity in any of the WebEx, like X, not WebEx, but WebEx.
Please no more WebEx.
Maybe we'll say WebN. There you go. Keep it.
Yeah, there you go. WebN. Perfect. Yes.
Sued by Cisco. So for many of the WebN technologies as they come out, right? Identity is going to adapt to the capabilities of the technology, and I think that this is a good way for it to get ahead without having to go the wheel, because left to their own devices they'll invent the wheel again, right? But it would be nice to see Okta or Firebricks or something show up and go, hey, we're gonna use it. Hopefully.
Okay, so thank you everyone for tuning in, for listening to us talk about this concept. Once again, he is Ryan Quick, CTO of Esaiyo. I am Raymond St. Martin, the CEO of Esaiyo. We hope that you've gotten something from this conversation, whether in regard to how digital identity is formed in Web 2, how it is then bridged into Web 3, the benefits of that, and also how we can begin to learn and interact and create these new digital identities based on how we interact with the objects around us, how people interact with us, and how systems interact with us. Overall, I think we will get closer and closer to understanding the human race, understanding humans and the objects around us through systems like this. So if you have any thoughts, reach out to us. Go to esaiyo.com, ESAIYO.com. Contact us or reach back out. If you have any questions, also reach out to us and we'll get back to you. Thank you so much for tuning in.